If I may ask you for some advice for a reason I'll explain maybe in a little bit, or maybe I should just explain now, which is I think because you've talked about Islamophobia, because you've been at the center of so many catastrophic events, because you sort of jump into the fire to try to help people, you've been attacked a lot. Just in general, you've been under stress. It's just you're you're not immune to stress. So a part of me wants to ask just how psychologically difficult it's been and where you draw strength. And would you advise, if the opportunity is there, for a person like me, for a silly kid in a suit, to go to that part of the world and take seriously conversations? I would divide it into two categories. There's leaders and there's people. The leaders are sort of these political entities that have their interests, but they also have power and they want to hold on to power. And then people are just regular people that have families that just want to have basic rights and freedoms and continue to love their families, to pursue different jobs and careers and lives that they can flourish and so on. Those are very kind of different dynamics at play. And if given the opportunity to speak to leaders for me, would you advise I do it or not? And when I say leaders, I mean leaders that would make the case, the pro-Zionist case and the anti-Zionist case. And in both cases, I would make it a very challenging conversations for both of them. Unlike today, our conversation today, you're an inspiring, incredible person. I'm a huge fan of yours. You spread so much love to the Muslim community here, to the Jewish community. Just everybody loves you. But
not everybody.
Not yes, that's true.
Not everybody.
That's true.
But
a lot of people love you. Yes, but this was kind of an inspiring and a positive conversation. It wasn't very challenging, although we did touch challenging topics, and you did exceptionally well there. But I would do very challenging conversation with those leaders in that part of the world. Is that a bad idea?
All right. Well, let me tell you from now. First and foremost, the first part, because I don't want to lose the first part of your conversation. Is it psychologically stressful? Very, very. But when you're a person of faith and you believe that good work will always be rewarded and that doing the right thing will always be rewarded eventually, you're able to weather that storm quite a bit.
So your wife told you
well, that's the second
was
thing.
Okay, right?
That's the second thing I was going to mention is honestly a supportive family. You know, my dad's 80, man, and he's been through a lot. He was born in 1943, 5 years before Israel was even created. He was born in Palestine. He's suffered displacement. He has been around the world and somehow built himself up to be a distinguished professor of chemistry, an author, an inventor. Grew up taking on some of the most difficult challenges and was just always a man of principle. I always admired my dad being a man of principle. And he just tells me, man, stay the course. Don't be afraid. Don't back down. I have a supportive family. I have a supportive wife. I've got supportive kids. So I have amazing people around me that keep me grounded for sure. And ultimately, obviously, faith. And also, I'll say this, slander doesn't stand.
What do you mean by that?
When people slander you, and it kind of comes with the territory of a public figure, it's not going to stand throughout time because eventually any sincere person will find the truth. And the only people that will regurgitate that will continue to do so. So when I get portrayed as an anti-Semite because of my strong takes on Israel and challenging Israel, and I will continue to do so, it takes just people in doubt. We know him. What are you talking about? So slander doesn't stand, at least with the people that are important to you. It might reside on the internet. It might have great rankings and social media bots that give it traction.
But is that psychologically difficult to you to have that?
Yes, it is difficult. It's very difficult, and it's hurtful, especially when it comes from quarters that you would hope that it doesn't come from. But, you take a step back, you reevaluate, you lean into your faith, and you lean on the people that are closest to you, and then you keep going. You learn the lessons. Could I be doing something better? Could I be doing something different? Could I be saying something better? Could I be saying something different? Are the noble causes that I want to achieve, am I doing justice by those causes? How do I grow out of this, right? You become wiser through these things as well. The second part of your question, though, about what you should do, if you're going to talk to people from a place of inquiry. I would say talk to people more so than leaders, and especially some of those who have been erased from the media commentary. Benjamin Netanyahu gets a lot of airtime, here in the United States. He's well-spoken. He speaks perfect English. He's an American as well. I would challenge him, on some of the things that he has said and done. He has an ongoing corruption case. I think that I think he's a fascist. I think that he's a person who has done much evil. I think that he has a lot of blood on his hands, and I think that one day he will be prosecuted for that. But I'd say talk to people on the ground and people that have been erased. Talk to the families that are being displaced. Sheikh Jarrah. I don't care about the political leadership. I'd much rather you talk to the people on the ground in East Jerusalem that have been displaced. The families. Talk to Palestinian Christians. Talk to the sister of Shireen Abu Akla, Lina Abu Akla, who was extremely disappointed and let down when Joe Biden went to the region and did not take her calls, did not meet her, which was an absolutely disgraceful move. He should have met with her. She's the sister of an American journalist who was murdered in cold blood. Talk to Lina Abu Akla. Talk to Mitri Rahib. Mitri, interesting person, for example. He's a Lutheran. He's the head of the Lutheran Church in Palestine. He comes to Dallas sometimes and talks about the plight of Palestinian Christians. I think if you're talking to people in leadership, obviously there are some that will be able to represent themselves in English. Hanan Ashrawi is a very eloquent person, for example. I don't know if you're going to have any luck getting into Gaza, but I'll pray for you if you do. But obviously, if you want to talk to everybody, you got to talk to everybody, man. So,
well, and I also want to say this is very important when you say whitewashing, because I've heard this a lot. So also with Ukraine and Russia, there's an interesting line between whitewashing, which is something you definitely should not do, and a deep empathy for a large number of human beings. It's a really tricky line to walk. And I also disagree with you about, I think, I don't know if it's a disagreement, but I think I disagree about leaders. I think I agree 100% that the most important people are the people on the ground.
Okay.
But I think those are extremely important people to understand, not just as leaders, but as human beings too. And in many cases to have a challenging conversation, but from a place of empathy, from understanding a human being.
So if you plan to talk to the current leadership of Israel, my only request to you is talk to the victims themselves, not the Palestinian Authority. Talk to the victim. I know you want to, right? So I
but
appreciate
the victims, yes, the victims.
Talk to
yes,
the victims
100%.
themselves. Talk to those people that are being thrown out of their homes and subjected to the daily humiliation. Go to a checkpoint and walk through the checkpoint the way that a Palestinian walks through a checkpoint and tell me that's not apartheid. Walk through that checkpoint, crammed in cages, and tell me it's not apartheid. So I think you're a very sincere person. I think you're gonna do your best. I'll be praying for you.
Some of these things are harder than others, but yes, I feel like we're in the middle of a negotiation and we've come to a point where we both agree.
Everyone deserves to be. Not everyone deserves to be, but I think there's great value and benefit. Let me say I agree with you in hearing people, even tyrants, hearing them so that you can properly deconstruct and decipher what you're hearing. But just think of the voices that don't get heard. And a lot of times what's been done to the Muslim world is, and what's being done right now in the name of the Abraham Accords, what's wrong with the Palestinians? The other Arabs are making peace with them. Let me tell you something. Those regimes that are signing on to the Abraham Accords, the people are not happy, but they're terrified of challenging those regimes. So if you go talk to the leaders of some of these countries that have signed on to the Abraham Accords and that are, in some twisted way, making this about religion and peace, you can greatly skew the narrative to where Palestinians are just an inherently disagreeable people that don't want peace. They just want to live in their homes. They just want to live as full, equal human beings. They want the things that everybody wants. And they're only being further disenfranchised in the name of peace now, because voices are being amplified in the name of peace that are suffocating voices for justice.